Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is January 7th, 2019. It's a new year, and we are now recording episode 22. In this episode, we're going to be finishing up the... I can't talk. Why can I not talk?
Mistborn secret history.
In this episode, we're finishing up with Scadrial for a while, as we conclude our discussion of Mistborn secret history. Spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
In related news, really cool stuff ahead as well.
Most of the best spoilers are really cool stuff.
I know, right?
Or super depressing, but you know.
Well, we want to thank our listeners for joining us, as always. I am Bill, and I am joined with my... I can't remember the adjective I had.
You have...
We are nailing this today. I'm going to be doing
the pun!
We're synchronized. There we go. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah. I'm joined by my unfathomable co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Thanks for being here, guys.
Very glad to be here.
It's a new year, people. But we did not make any sort of resolutions to actually improve our actual podcasting ability, just the equipment and...
I resolved to be as awesome as I always have been.
And that's a different book. We aren't covering Edge Dancer yet, so can't use that adjective.
I didn't say full of awesomeness.
We're doing great. We don't sound like we haven't done this for 3 weeks, does it?
This is like we're rusty now.
Good. Thanks, Godless Rebel. Thanks for the moral support in chat.
We're not rusty. We're not ruiny.
No, it's
okay. No, that's fine. We're stretching for the new year. It's great.
It's a callback. Stretching like a lattice over the entire world.
Okay, well, we're stretching even further, but I'm not opposed to this line.
I might have to cut some of this out.
This is what the people have come in for. This is what they want.
You knew what we were when you picked us up.
Indeed. So, State of the Sanderson recap, should we just go straight into it?
Well, first off, just for those of us who listen to the podcast recordings, we want to remind you that you can join us and be here live for all these antics and, chime in. Say stuff that will throw us off.
Mm-hmm.
Watch us when I've screwed up and we have the stream actually going through Japan.
It's great there.
Pikachu missed you.
He did.
Anyway, if you do want to join us for the live recordings, you can go to www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record these episodes every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So please join us, take an active part of the discussion, laugh with us, and perhaps at us occasionally. Did we get that? Did we do that?
It's all there. It's recording. We're live.
We're awesome. All right. Now, again, before we move forward, there will be spoilers this episode. If you haven't read all of the Mistborn books, there are going to be spoilers for basically everything that happens on Scadrial. We're going no holds barred. We're going deep. We're going to start speculating. We're going to sound like crazy people by the end of this.
Mostly them. I don't know which direction to point.
Oh no, you're in this with us.
Yeah, you signed up for this. Your name is on the cover.
I know. I just don't feel qualified sometimes.
You don't need to feel qualified. We're definitely not. Can you imagine how stupid our ideas are going to sound in a couple of years?
They thought, what?
They're going to be like, oh gosh, they
were so wrong. So wrong.
Those idiots didn't know Hoyd was odium.
Come on.
There are three letters from Hoyd in odium.
I know, right?
Oh, don't go there. I don't like that.
It's okay. Half-Life 3 confirmed. So.
Yep. All right. Okay, so one of the things that's happened since our last recording was Brandon released his 2018 State of the Sanderson. And guys, the day that this came out, I was sitting at my computer at work. Yes, I'm fully admitting I was at work and just waiting for it to drop. I was refreshing his website over and over, just waiting for it to happen. Fortunately, he did it in the morning, so I was actually able to have a fairly productive day anyway. But I was just drooling waiting for this. So, I mean, how do we want to go into this? Do we just sort of want to go point by point on what he said in it? Or?
I mean, just maybe more what you're excited about, because we still have a lot to cover with Secret History.
There's a whole lot going on this episode, because not only has Brandon released the 2018 State of the Sanderson, not State of the Sandersonian, that's us.
That's us.
But
and if you're listening to this, you know we don't want to analyze it too closely because it's not going well.
I like this plan. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, let's do it.
No, but so not only did he do that, he also posted his first update of sort of what he's how he's planning on writing Stormlight Book 4. He went a little bit into depth on that. And then he also released, surprise, a Hemalurgy chart.
I know. Oh, I didn't pull it up full size. I need to do that.
Yeah. So if you think we're not going over the Hemalurgy chart, first of all, if you don't know there's a Hemalurgy chart, I will forgive you, because it was released in the leather-bound version of Hero of Ages, which just released, which, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't know this was going to be in there. Like, he had hinted that it would be released sometime soon, but not where or when.
Yeah.
And so all I know is I saw some people the day before on the Cosmere subreddit just being like, oh, this, I'm looking forward to the leather-bound thing. And then the next day, some guy's like, hey, guys, look what's inside this thing. And it's a picture. And then the Cosmere subreddit collectively lost their collective minds. Because it says some things. But
we'll get to that after the Sandersonian, so we're going to make you wait. Anyway... Right, not the Sandersonian. State of the Sanderson. I use words. I'm an English major. I promise.
You're doing great.
Wow. This is a fun day.
Yeah.
So, State of the Sanderson. There wasn't a whole lot that we, didn't know. He clarified a few things. He told us that he's going to be diving into writing Stormlight 4 starting January 1st, which was 6 days ago. So he's well on his way. We also found out that basically one of the things that he's doing, this wasn't in the State of Sanderson, this was in his update on Stormlight, is he's going to start off by rereading all 3 books, which, awesome, and then he's actually going to redo the outlines for 4 and 5. Because the way that Brandon writes, especially with the Stormlight books, he's got a general outline, he's got a lot of scenes and ideas and stuff, but he's moving them around, figuring out where they fit the best. So, for example, Book 3 was originally supposed to be Zeth's book.
Yes.
For the flashbacks.
And instead he changed it to Dalinar's. Cool. But apparently that shifted around a few things. The Kaladin's major climax that was in Book 2 was originally supposed to be in Book 3 as well. So things have shifted around, and that means that the outlines that he's created are kind of piecemeal at this point. Yeah, he's pulled pieces out, and so he's got a Jenga tower that he needs to restructure.
Yeah.
And he has to make a Seth-shaped hole in Book 4, so...
Yeah, well... But so there's a whole lot coming on there. The other thing that really stood out to me was this book, the original that he's talked about. Did y'all notice anything about? Did y'all take a look at that?
The original what?
No. So this is
the
This is a novella that he's working on that apparently is also in early stages of possibly being made into a movie. He listed a few of the things that movies and stuff, but the original, it's essentially a concept where if you commit a crime, they have backup clones of everybody. And so they'll create a clone of you that has all of your memories, and then they send it after you.
And if they get you, then they get to be you, right?
They basically get your life. But they're also implanted with basically a kill switch. So if they go off book, then government can immediately kill them. So I don't know.
I'd forgotten about that.
The concept of it just fascinates me.
That would be interesting.
So
It's horrifying.
And then
Yeah, horrifying, but
I'm
interesting.
already my own worst enemy. I don't need the government to help.
Yeah, it's true. That, and then the one that I've started referring to as the project formerly known as Death by Pizza, which was about a pizza delivery guy who finds out he's a necromancer, and now he's shifted it, and suddenly it's not a pizza guy, it's a metalhead.
And he researched it with people who are real metalheads and stuff,
yeah,
right?
he's co-writing it with a guy who's hardcore metalhead, and so it's just okay, this is it feels very appropriate, thematic.
You guys show me. It's too far. Rosie.
And so, what about y'all? Anything stand out to y'all?
What stood out to me is the fact that Stormlight 4 is probably coming out before Wax and Wayne 4. Or he's writing it in the middle of Stormlight.
Yeah.
All I know
So
is...
it'll actually probably... So Wax and Wayne 4 will probably come out before Stormlight 4.
All I
Because
know is I
it
thought
takes
it was
longer
coming
editing.
out in 2018, and it didn't. And now I'm like, 2019? I need it? Come on.
Yeah, he said it's probably
Daddy
going to
needs
be...
his Scadrial juice.
Yeah.
I was glad that he's still working on Apocalypse Guard, because that sounded really fun to me, that one. And I'm glad that it's not just dead.
I love the way he described it.
In revisions, getting weirder.
If revision's getting weirder. Why? Because he's working on it with Dan Wells, and when the two of them get together, things get strange.
Yeah, I haven't read all of Dan Wells' stuff, but I liked what I read of his, though it's quite a bit darker than my usual stuff.
You
right,
think?
but it sounds like when you
Yeah,
got
just-
Brandon and Dan together, it's not necessarily that kind of dark. It just
Yeah, it's going to
gets
be weird, but fun.
odd. Why? Because they've known each other a long, long time, and when that happens,
They're college buddies. When you reconnect with your college buddies, it always gets strange. Why do you think this podcast is so weird? We're college buddies.
all three of us.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. No,
For those of you who
IRPG
haven't gone
with
to
my-
college yet, this is what you have to look forward to. It's
great.
only uphill from here.
Yeah. I RPG regularly with some college friends, and it's always fun with them because we get the most random ideas, and it's hilarious. Only to us. Other people will be like, "You're just weird," but we think it's funny. So.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
probably what stands out at the state of the Sanderson.
cool.
Yeah.
All right, Hemalurgy.
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 Let's do this.
Jordan, why don't you take the reins on this one?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to go into the action. I'm just pulling up the chart now. I had it open earlier, but then
In Coppermine, they have it listed out,
Yeah.
so you don't have to look at the picture, which is hard to see.
I
At
like
least it
looking at
was on
the
my phone.
picture.
It was hard on my phone. My phone's not big enough
Oh,
to see that picture
well,
very well.
I have a screen now.
You have a screen, yes.
So the first thing that stands out to me is the fact that says it has two little boxes that say this: there are hundreds of hemalurgic bind points on the human body. This we knew. This chart concerns itself with the making of steel inquisitors, which I find interesting because it lists all the metals. And the next box down says this: a steel linchpin is recommended to avoid the potential deadly side effect of the bestowal of 4 or more spikes.
Oh.
So, but it doesn't really explain why the linchpin helps that. And so there's two possible sources, or I guess there's a third, of this chart in my head. One is the Lord Ruler, but I don't see him writing this down because he didn't want his Inquisitors to really know everything.
And he doesn't share well.
Yeah, and he doesn't share well. But this deals with the creation of Steel Inquisitors. The second potential point is Naj and Chris, thank you. This is very academic in nature, so I could see them putting everything. The other reason I don't think it's the Lord Ruler, I don't think he would list the spiritual metals, what they can do. He doesn't want. There's no way he'd want the Steel Inquisitors to know some of these things. And then the last source, and the one that I kind of in my head want to lean towards right now, though I have no way of knowing how they'd know some of this, is Kelsier and Spook.
You're not biased at all.
No. Just because I actually lean towards Naj and Chris. I keep saying that backwards. Chris is clearly the leader. But I would want to know how they know that Lerasium steals all abilities.
I personally think that it actually is the Lord Ruler in the Steel Inquisition.
Okay.
And maybe not. Chris and Naj found his personal notes or something.
Because the thing about the Steel Inquisitors is they're fanatically loyal to the Lord Ruler.
But they could be easily controlled by Ruin. I guess if you put it on paper, it doesn't really matter because they can't read paper.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
They don't have normal eyes anymore.
Yeah, and so there's tons of ways he could have hidden it. It's just I want to believe it's Kelsier and Spook, even though it doesn't make sense. But here's something that was interesting. So obviously I dove deep into the Reddit thread where people did this. First of all, I love that the top rated comment was person who read just quoted Chromium. Chromium reads, "Might steal destiny," and the comment was, "WTF, Brandon." And then then it read, "Nicroseal steals investiture." Oh, thanks, Brandon. That clears that one right up.
Yeah, but then might steal
steal destiny, which sounds very academic. I like that.
Oh yes.
But so I want to cover a few things. First, let's go to Lerasium. I want to cover this one because it sounds simple, but people have pointed out something that is interesting. You read the rest of this chart. It says, steals physical allomantic powers. Pewter steals physical allomantic ferochemical powers. And you just start going through. Lerasium says steals all abilities, not all powers, abilities.
Right.
They use a different word.
Well, and I think at one point, Brandon has said that you can use it to get abilities from other worlds.
Which makes sense. Adium, he has confirmed, in words of Brandon, can do similar things. Can steal a power from a different world. But notice, Adium steals any power.
Oh. Must be refined.
Lerasium steals abilities. In my head, and obviously we're given 3 words for what Lerasium Hemalurgy does, so there's a lot of room for interpretation. The fact that this is a different word matters, and I'm wondering if it's whereas power is... God, I don't have the language for this, because I was going to say the ability to do something.
Something that usually takes investiture to do.
While power, I think, means the capability of doing something, the potentiality. Ability to me sounds something more like that you have learned, that you have harnessed. So
possible.
I feel like what Lerasium may do is not only give you the ability or the capability of doing something, but maybe somehow also preserves the skill involved in doing something.
Sort of like when you burn adium, you also get the mental ability to use it. You know, everything about you is enhanced to the point where you can actually make use of it.
Which if an adium spike wouldn't necessarily do that, because some of the powers aren't something you intrinsically understand how to use.
So I just noticed something that stands out as different. So if you look at this chart, things like investiture and ferochemical power and allomantic, all of those are capitalized. Destiny is not. So I'm not sure. So it just makes it, why is that different? What is...
So I have a couple of things. First, let's go through the spirit. Because the rest of the metals, they steal powers related to feruchemy, allomancy, and natural human abilities. Like your senses, your strength, and stuff like that. The spiritual are the ones that do all the interesting and sexy things that we don't understand. So Duralumin steals connection, identity. Okay. That, we don't fully understand connection, but it seems to make sense.
We've had some exposure to it.
Yeah, so my thought being, if you did something like that, like let's say you spiked someone from Cell you would, when you get spiked back, that would give you connection to Cell, and you'd be able to speak their language. Is sort of, and you start thinking of yourself in terms of a Cellish person, or is it a Cellian person?
Cellish.
I don't think it's...
It is Cellish.
Okay.
Okay.
He doesn't look Cellish. But,
Spaceballs?
that's
Really?
right. This is what we're getting today. So
I was thinking DBZ, but you know.
Okay. So then the next one I want to go to, because I actually, even though we don't know as much about it, I think we might be able to parse it out. Nicrosil steals investiture. Now, that's interesting because we're like, well, yeah, with ADM, you can steal anyone's power, but I don't think that's what it means. I think what it means, and this was, again, this is through everyone sort of trying to parse it out through the subreddit, is the actual physical raw form of it. So the thinking being, if you somehow were able to spike Sisebron with the Nicrosil spike and then stab yourself with it, you would gain all the breaths and the ability, not the ability to use them, but the passive abilities. The heightenings gained with something like that. And maybe even something like a Spren bond. Now, there's all sorts of other questions because there's a second party involved in a Spren bond.
I thought I saw something. I don't know if it was Word of Brandon, but it was if you were to try and steal a Spren bond, the Spren it breaks the bond with the Spren, and so the Spren is not actually bound anymore. So there's no guarantee that it would bond with you.
So there's a lot of people have asked about this question. I've read a lot of Word of Brandon's on it, and my understanding of it is that it wouldn't immediately break the bond, but the Spren can get out of, Spren can break the contract. It hurts them, but it doesn't kill them.
Right.
The way if a human breaks it, it does kill the Spren. But there might be some Spren that might be okay with this change as long as you keep upholding the contract. Now, I don't know which Spren are okay with something like that.
It might be the Chaos ones or something, like the ones that like to destroy. I can't remember what they're called.
The Void Spren?
No, there was somebody in Teravangian's group.
Oh, the Dustbringer Spren?
Yes, one of them, like the ones that like destroying things or something to that effect. I can't remember exactly
could be that.
what it was.
I could also maybe potentially see a Skybreaker Spren because of how literal they take law stuff. There's some way that they could do. I don't know, but Nicrosil might be able to do that. That's that's a question. Aluminum is interesting. Removes all powers. So this is interesting for several reasons. One, literally everything else in Hemalurgy steals something. This does not steal. In the nature of aluminum being inert in some way,
completely inert.
This removes it. So the question is, does the aluminum spike have to be previously hemalurgically charged? Does it has to have already killed someone first? Because every other hemalurgic spike, in order to grant the thing, it has to be previously charged. But this one only removes. My thinking is it doesn't have to, that all aluminum could be used in this way if you have A, the intent, and B, the right bind point.
The intent being what's important, because you know in Era 2 they're firing all these aluminum bullets, which can technically be spikes.
But
that's true.
But the intent is necessary.
The intent is to kill, not to spike. And so, and the bind points, and so that I immediately went, ooh, this is our God Killer weapon. An Allomantics or an aluminum spike, but
oh gosh,
you have to hit the exact right point, but the correct points according to this aren't too difficult. Lower abdomen in the side, it looks like. Somewhere in the lower leg area, it looks like, and somewhere in the wrist area. And so, if you're fighting maybe a God King or a Lord Ruler, maybe this is how you go about it. And you're fighting with something that's allomantically inert, something that's very difficult to awaken, something that, you could push that. Now you have to deal with everything else that someone like that can throw at you, but you know, it's an interesting. But then the one that has everyone is Chromium, of course. Might steal destiny.
Yeah.
He's gonna turn into Marty McFly and steal his own mother from his father.
And then constantly, or then erase himself from existence. So
density has taught me to.
Well, so I do like, Bill, that you point out it's not capitalized, because everything else that's capitalized are things that are studied, in some way understood. This not being capitalized, the fact it says might steal destiny is
like I don't even know, man.
Yeah, hence that.
I don't know.
But what's interesting is these powers, at least in the spiritual one, they also somewhat echo things. Aluminum removing powers echoes allomantic aluminum, which removes all your stores. Nicroseal stealing investiture echoes ferrochemical storing investiture. Duralumin stealing connection. That references duralumin ferrochemy. Stealing destiny is interesting because ferrochemical chromium stores fortune. And
okay.
And so this is where people have made some connections through words of Brandon and stuff. Fortune, they reference using fortune in the IRE somewhere. I can't remember where.
Yes.
And they use it in reference to future sight. And odium has also I can't remember where. I believe it's when, and this is spoilers for a different book, when he's talking to a specific person who has figured out a thing or two, and he references fortune and future sight, maybe sort of a connection there. Well, destiny, if you think about it, is sort of, if you think about it in cosmic terms, your destiny would sort of be like the universe knowing what's going to happen to you, your fortune. The coincidences are supposed to occur. Now, the question is, how much is that tied to a person? Is a specific destiny tied to them? And so,
or is it more that there's a couple people that could fill that role that's needed?
Yeah,
or...
and so it's one of those things where if there's some giant prophecy foretold about someone and it's a big deal, I think of it sort of the same way as in the cognitive realm. If you made it, someone asked, like, what does a canal look like in the cognitive realm? Because it was man-made. So you make it, is it suddenly land? And Brandon has said, over time, it would become land in the cognitive realm as people think about it as...
water versus land.
Exactly. And so stealing destiny, I think it would have to be a grand destiny to really steal anything, because it has to be somewhat written into the universe itself. That's
so. There's a new hero of Ages in Town type thing.
Yeah. So if someone, in theory, did this spiked Sazed and then stabbed himself,
or Vin, or something like that.
Yeah, and taken the different role that was some big plan that someone big put into motion. But for obvious reasons, it's going to be hard to test something like that because A, you have to know someone has a destiny, and B, you have to be right about it, and C, you have to kill someone who probably is important enough to be hard to kill.
Which means for all of those things, it might essentially mean you have to be in league with one of the shards. Because they're the ones who have some sort of future sight.
But now, here's where it gets juicy. Again, this is now spoilers. We gave a big spoiler warning, and this is for all the Cosmere. We stabbed oh dang it, why am I blanking on the name? A herald with something, and it killed him permanently.
That's right.
Like, he's not part of the cycle or anything. We don't know what, like, I haven't gone back and looked at, like, what the blade that they gave to Moash was, but it was a specific one that seemed to somewhat capture, like, sort of like capturing a spren, seemed to somewhat do that, but it's also a blade. I'm now looking at this chart, and I'm wondering if it's some combination of capturing spren in sphere with Hemalurgy in some way to destroy that cycle.
Huh.
And so,
I don't know.
all I know is
Yeah,
this
I don't
chart
know.
is so incredibly juicy, and yet at the same time tells us jack squat.
Jordan, I would prefer not to talk about Hemalurgy and juicy because there's
Well, I'm not done talking about juices today, so...
it's just not a juice box I want any part of.
Oh, we're getting into this juice box.
Yeah.
It's like talking to my 4-year-old and saying, no, we don't talk about bathroom things when we're trying to eat. No, you just don't.
I don't see why not.
But why?
Why, Mom? I needed to tell you. No, you really didn't right now.
Look,
Anyway.
we put the Hemalurgy chart in the show notes.
I
It was-
know. You didn't
It was
have
going.
to say
It was
juicy.
going juicy directions. I'm
Okay.
never gonna be able to say this word without thinking of Hemalurgy now. I apologize to all
great.
people who really enjoyed juicy fruit.
Wow, you're just making it worse.
I have
making it
another
better.
reference, that, so it's safe for me still. I prefer that one, so I'll stick with that. Anyway,
Dang it! Now that's all I care about is figuring out what it was,
Kel Pickles. Nice.
which is close to Kelsier, which goes back to Secret History. What a segue!
Woo. And
That
we're
was smooth.
back. Right. So,
I have no response.
So should we finally finish up
I was
talking
gonna say,
Secret History?
yeah,
or do you
are
have
we going to
anything
head
else?
back? Let's get our way back to Mistborn's Secret History.
yes.
So last time where we left off was Preservation died when Kelsier was nowhere in particular.
Yes.
Again, the line when he dies, where Kelsier says, "I'm here for you," and he says, "No, you weren't." It just that gets to me, and it just hurts.
For me, it doesn't quite get to me because it doesn't strike me as admonishing.
No, I'm not talking about admonishing. I'm talking about that's how Preservation felt after all this time and everything he's doing. He felt that he was alone.
Yeah, but I guess to me, it doesn't get to me as much because it feels to me more like he's trying to explain to Kelsier, not that you let
couldn't
me
save
down,
me.
but more that it's just like you couldn't be there for me.
Right. No, and I understand that, but I'm not talking about disappointment or anger at
Oh,
Kelsier.
okay.
I'm talking about, because he says, after appearing to all these people when they died and ushering them into the next life and all of that, I never thought that my own death would be so cold and lonely.
Mm.
And it hurts.
Yeah.
Because this is, it's clear that he's not perfect. There are, Preservation has his own flaws because it's essentially stagnation when it's unchecked. This is why Adonalsium as a concept is very interesting, because you have all these aspects and each of them is trying to be, sufficient, but when they're split up, you end up going to extremes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And-
And then it's also just because throughout this book, if there's anything that it shows, it's how hard Preservation is trying.
Mm-hmm.
Like
and that's
it's sort of like it's sort of like getting older. Like Kelsier's like a child who's gotten older, and you suddenly see everything your parent has done for you that as a
Right.
kid you could not see or understand it because it was all in the background. It's behind the scenes.
And you were busy doing your own thing, and even if they were doing it right there, you weren't focused on that, so you didn't see it.
Well, and they're the ones who are telling you not to do things, and they're not doing the things you want them to do, and then suddenly you realize, oh, I was so wrong about a lot of this stuff. And
Well, and
Kelsey-
that's a great comparison, especially with Kelsier, because he tells him that with the Lord Ruler, like, you should be helping with this, and you don't, and he just has no clue the scale of problems that Preservation's trying to deal with.
To contain,
well, I mean,
yeah.
you remember we talked about how smug Kelsier was when the Lord Ruler died, and he's like, I won. And
It's
he's
like,
just,
no,
and,
no.
and Preservation is just like, what have you done? And then the Lord Ruler himself, he's just like, you foolish child.
But yeah.
So
So then Kelsier takes the powers of preservation. And in the first, like, truly selfless thing I think Kelsier's ever done, without hint of... There's not a plot. There's not a secret revenge that's hidden deep in his heart the way it was for the Lord Ruler. He tells, I'll get it to her.
yeah, his purpose is to just carry it. He is quite literally a vessel in this, except he's unable to be a full vessel because as 80 or as Ruin mocks him with, he doesn't have a physical form. He's only tied to the cognitive and to the spiritual realm.
Well, and
so
he's
he
tied
isn't
to
able
one other thing that's a problem. He's tied to Ruin.
Yeah.
And I just love that at first he's like, what? And it's sort of mad. And then he starts laughing. He's like, oh my goodness, Kelsier. I couldn't pick a better vessel. Are you kidding me? This is like priceless.
This is great that you're trying to fight me.
But the other thing I love about it is just the fact that this is very heady stuff, talking about ascending to become 1/16 of a god. And Brandon is somehow, despite making it very godly and making it very unknowable in a way, he describes it in terms that make it very understandable. Like when Kelsey is trying to get the power, it's resisting him, and he's just like, okay, I have pulled on stubborn anchors before. And to him, it feels like allomancy, that he's pulling towards him. And with Kelsier holding the power, he calls it, like, he refers it in very allomantic terms the entire time. And I love that because he takes this thing where he's now part of all these realms, he can see the whole world, yet says it in a way that gives us something that I can at least grasp a little bit.
Yep.
It's just, it's frankly one of his most brilliant pieces of writing.
Right.
But yeah, then Kelsier starts.
Yeah, he
seeing
basically
the full
is
scope.
He's fighting Ruin everywhere he goes. You know, he tries one thing, and Ruin's response is, "Everything you do, I counter."
Yeah.
Because Ruin's been doing this for a little bit longer than Kel has as well.
And Kel's just so much. Not only is he better at it, he's way weaker than this guy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because again, 80 has three, tie to all three realms, and Kelsier has no tie to the physical realm.
But the key detail that I love that Preservation gave him early on, that Kelsier keeps sort of going over in his mind, is Preservation told him, what is the flaw of every clever man? He doesn't know as much as he thinks he does. And it gets Kelsier to think of himself back when he was younger, weaker, and was conning people off the street, and gets him to start thinking in terms of, I can't win a direct fight. I need to go at this sideways the way I did when I was a kid on the street.
He needs to street fight it. Yep, exactly.
Because he wouldn't expect Ruin wouldn't have to have had that kind of fight because he's 1/16 of Adonalsium.
And so disconnected from who he used to be that when Kelsier asks him, did you ever play cards back when you were a man? He's like, I was never a man. In the most pompous way that you're just like, oh my goodness, I really hope he punches you at some point in the future of this book.
He already tried once.
He does in the end.
Yep.
Then Brandon's like, wow, what an oddly specific request.
Well, I also like that when he took a swing at Ruin, and Ruin says, was that wise? And Kelsier's response is, no, it was thematic.
I know, I read that. I was like, oh, that's totally Kelsier right there. It's thematic. I gotta do it.
This is why Kelsier's the best character ever. But
then, okay, so he, after all, he fights Ruin on and off, and then basically gets beaten down and retreats for a while. And then he shows up, he starts looking around at all the different people who are connected to Ruin somehow, because I think that's when he figures out the spikes.
No,
he figured that out before he became invested.
That's right. No, but what I'm saying is, so he's figured out the spikes, and so he's looking and seeing who's tied to him, and he comes across Spook.
That's right, yeah.
And he sees...
Oh, it's so. Oh, sorry.
Well,
go
it's
ahead.
It's such a good scene because he sees Spook, getting ready to basically kill this woman so that he can steal her power. Mm-hmm. This woman that he's actually in love with.
Well, no, it wasn't her because he was about to kill the citizen.
He was about to kill the citizen, but then he found out that he thought the citizen was the Allomancer, and then he finds out that it's Beldre.
Yeah. Beldre, that's right.
And
I'm so glad you said that name. I've never known how to pronounce it.
But you listen to the audiobooks.
Yeah, and he also said a couple of weird things that made me not confident.
Fair enough. I say Beldre or Beldra. Technically, I guess if it's French, I'm not even going to go into French pronunciation.
If it's French, it's Kelsier, and we just don't accept that.
Beldre.
That sounds Russian to me more than anything.
No.
Yeah,
anyway, but so he just sees how broken Spook is, just how shredded his spirit has become because of everything.
Well, and the other thing that was interesting from Kelsier's perspective was the fact that he saw that Spook was more connected to him than Marsh or Vin. Mm-hmm. And I think for Kelsier in particular, that was very sobering because A, he had no clue how important he was to Spook, because if Kelsier's honest, he really didn't think much about Spook because Spook was just this kid. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that was interesting was the fact that this is his first time, I think, really seeing himself as someone's religious figure, even though for Spook, he didn't worship him as a religious figure.
Except that he did.
He worshipped him.
Because that's the thing is, Marsh, this was his brother.
Yeah.
Vin, this was essentially her father. Mm-hmm. But for Spook, this was his god. Not literal in the sense, but he worshipped him nonetheless.
His hero, his mentor,
even more than Demu.
Yeah. Well, throughout Hero of Ages, Spook is constantly like, okay, what would Kelsier do in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, okay, Demu worshipped Kelsier, quite literally, because he was a survivorist. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like it actually kind of reminds me of in Warbreaker. You find out that that Lightsong's high priest
was his brother.
It's the same sort of relationship because he knew him personally and still worshipped him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Demu still was at a distance from Kelsier.
There was a separation there.
He worships the idea of Kelsier.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But Spook knew him. Spook knew him personally, saw him day to day, and still worshipped him. And that's sort of the same way with Lalaramar. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's just
nailed that on the first take. I'm impressed. It's not an easy name.
He saw him, on a regular basis. He talked to him, and he worshipped it. It's a very personal connection, and it's even beyond, in some ways, the connection of a father and daughter, of a brother and a brother.
Yeah,
it's this pure, undying devotion.
Yeah, and it was just so cool because I loved because he realizes this, and for Kelsier, he's like, oh no, because on top of it, he's seeing a false Kelsier trying to get him to do it, and he has to, in a Cosmere sense, whisper to Spook.
Well, and that's the thing is, he doesn't panic and shout and say, no, resist him, no, resist him. He has confidence in Spook. Mm-hmm. And he just says, hope. That's all. And he only has to say it quietly because he knows that's what will pierce through.
And that will sound more like Kelsier to him than what Ruin's doing.
So he's not frantic, he's confident, and he projects that confidence, and he says to Spook, he's like, I named you. You were my friend. And and that's all really Spook needed, because especially ever since Clubs died, Spook has felt like an absolute failure. And it's just, and so having this building, or what's the affirmation from Kelsier, somebody who, again, he worshipped. That's what he needed, and that's what gave him the strength to reach and pull the spike from his chest. I mean, he cut into himself and pulled this spike from his own chest.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's cool because the only reason he went there was because he wanted to do stuff with Vin or Marsh, but Ruin was sitting there watching them too closely.
Right.
So he found the piece that Ruin considered insignificant, which echoes Kelsier, because he kind of, at the first, back in his life, he didn't think of too much of it. Thought enough of him to bring him into the plans, but not enough to make him a focus.
They needed a Tenai. Again, he was a bonus that came with clubs. They didn't seek him out.
And so it's interesting because Ruin fails with Spook for the same reason Kelsier kind of failed with Spook. And then when Ruin looks, and Ruin's like, this is pointless, and tries to just burn the city down because he wants to hide his shame.
And again, what did Preservation say to Kelsier when he died? He said, they worshipped you and you were casual with their faith. And that's exactly what he had done with Spook. And he learns from what Preservation said to him. And he was no longer casual with his faith. And he's just like, I'm here. I'm with you. And that's all that Spook needed.
And then the other thing that's really cool about it is the next step, that Kelsier finally has a foothold, but he has one more thing. He has Ruin now watching that area. And up until that point, that's been a bad thing for Kelsier. But at that point, Kelsier, very much like the magician, he has him looking at the hand that he wants him to look at. And he's like, okay, Spook, I need you to write this in metal, and I need you to get this to Vin. Wink, wink. Get this to Vin. Okay? This is for Vin. And sure enough, Spook comes through because Spook is a dude, and he gets it written, and Goradel goes, and okay. And Goradel...
Before we get to Goradel, I want to talk a little bit about the conversation between Spook and Kelsier.
Oh, okay,
the dream?
In the green field, because it's just... I don't know exactly what to say about it specifically, but it's just one of the most touching scenes. Because first off, where are they? First off, Spook looks around, he says, where am I? What is this? And Kelsier casually chewing on a piece of grass. He's like, it's a half dream.
Half dream.
He's like, wait, a half dream? He's like, you're almost dead, kid. You're dying right now. And it's just, but then they just have this very sincere conversation, which again, what was the thing that Chris said to Kelsier? He says, there are many stories about you, and there are many things said about you, but none of them would peg you as being sincere. And it's just, this is something that Kelsier is sort of, he's learned a few things from dying. So
yeah, you learn a bit.
But it's one of the most open and, to be honest, vulnerable conversations that Kelsier's had. And I love that he shares it with Spook.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Okay, but,
so Goradel.
Yeah, going to Goradel, I like the fact
Poor
that...
guy.
Yeah, well, poor guy, but at the same time, he went out like a boss.
Oh, I know.
Fighting
Marsh and doing okay for himself versus...
Well, as an absolutely non-magical individual.
Yeah.
He's... Yeah, because he doesn't have Furukumi. He doesn't have Alamancy. All he was a city guard that Vin decided not to kill.
Yeah. And I love Kelsier, as Goradel dies, he's just like, this is a guy I probably would have killed back when I was alive. And then he dies. He's like, guess I got him killed anyway. Just sort of where it's... Because Kelsier knows the full stakes of what he's playing for, and he has to sacrifice a pawn. it doesn't make the sacrifice any less painful for him, realizing A, that he was wrong the entire time, that Vin was right, and B, that he did have to get him killed.
Yep.
And that he couldn't even, as Gorodel was fading off into the beyond, tell him, don't worry, buddy, it was good, because Ruin's watching.
Right.
And so he has to sort of just act all crestfallen that, oh no, my message didn't get to Vin, oh dear.
Oh no.
That said, Gorodel at least does get to leave a legacy.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, his great however many grandson ends up as the is he the
governor.
Is he the governor? Yeah, ends up as the governor of Elendel. So,
That's right. I forgot about that.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, it's pretty good. No, and then I just love when we finally get to Vin versus the entire murder of Inquisitors. And I love that Kelsier refers to it as a murder. It's so perfect.
They're carrion birds.
Well, and
That's
also
essentially what they are.
Well, and if you go to, I think it was Alloy of Law, or no, it might have been the next one, where there's the iconography that we see of Vin in fighting, and she's rising above it. It's like a flock of crows or ravens. I can't. It was one of the two, and it's as Steel Inquisitors are always drawn in the iconography, and I love that. It's because who wants to draw people with a bunch of spikes through them? But it's also it's very religiously symbolic, and but what does Kelsier call them? A murder. It's so perfect. And he's watching her fight them, and he gets to see her at her full glory. This is her not even getting assisted, and seeing her fight so many of them at the same time, and he's just like, she was amazing.
Yeah.
And before she even gets the help, and then finally, when Marsh is slowly torturing his daughter, and he just looks up at Ruin, and he's like, do you remember? He's like, do you know why I was good at cards? Because I always got my mark to pick the card that I wanted. And Ruin's sort of like raised eyebrow, looking at him, and then all of a sudden looks at Marsh. Like,
It's like, wait.
as Marsh rips out the earring, and it's just like, I just love Kelsier's quote, and it's like, looks like even gods can fall for a simple misdirection, Floy. And Ruin is so pissed that he sends everything at Kelsier, but not before he gets one last message to Vin, because she has the thought that because he can suddenly hear her he should as preservation, and she has that thought of, it's like, this feels familiar, and then Kelsier, and this is the word for word the exact thing in Hero of Ages, that she has this thought come into her mind. And I love that we now know that thought came from Kelsier, where he says, it's from the Well of Ascension, of course. It's the same power, after all. Solid in the metal you fed to Elend, liquid in the pool you burned, and vapor in the air, confined to the night, hiding you, protecting you, giving you power. Which echoes his first lesson to her, and it's the final gift he gives her. And then he lets go of the power, and Ruin descends upon him.
Yep.
Man, yeah.
And it's just so cool. It's just so good.
Fortunately for Kelsier, he's already dead, so,
Yeah.
You can't get too much worse.
Although, if I remember when
he ain't getting any deader.
Yeah.
Except, I think I do remember, when he gets up, there's holes in his soul or whatever.
Yeah, he took a beating from somebody else, I thought, and there was he's like, I'm leaking. There was
I think it was Ruin again. It was after
it Ruin
he tried,
that other time?
I think it was after he tried to punch Ruin.
Yes, and then Ruin just wailed
Ruined
on
him.
Well, because again, he says, is that wise? He's like, you realize now I have to punish you.
Yeah. And regardless, Roll brings up that it could have destroyed his cognitive form, and there's that technically.
It was just the fact that he couldn't devote his full attention to it because Vin ascended.
It's a big problem for him.
Well, and I love it when he's just like,
and of course,
wow.
the immigrant song starts playing again.
Yeah.
Well, especially because then the Inquisitor kills Elend, and Vin's just like, oh, it's going down.
Well, so when he kills Elend, it's interesting because he's watching it from the cognitive realm, and he sees Elend explode. Because it's when Elend, Duralumin bursted his adium, which is a combo we haven't seen before, and people have asked Brandon what exactly happened, and Brandon has said in not so many words that it let him see the ultimate end of his of what he was going to do, and so he wasn't expecting it, and Kelsier's surprised.
It's sort of Doctor Strange in Infinity War. He looks through it. Well, I'm saying, and he's seen, he looks and he sees all of the possible outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he sees the ultimate outcome.
Yeah.
So.
Which we still haven't seen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. No, I've seen Infinity War. I meant the next one.
Oh, okay.
Endgame, and I'm just distressed that we don't have it yet. And
it'll be here soon enough.
I know.
But,
just
so,
stress.
but there's like two more events after that I want to talk about.
Well,
the Vin Kelsier reunion.
Well, okay, but first off, with Ellen doing the exploding, I do love the way he describes it, because he's again sees Vin after Ellen falls, and he's like, she's falling, she's breaking, she's rising in glory, and it's just like, because Vin has become so much more than the little girl that Kelsier knew in life, and it's just sort of, again, the proud father moment, because she has surpassed anything that he ever taught her.
Well, and to stamp that final fact is when she finally dies and she steps her cognitive form into the cognitive realm, she just sort of lands a light, and Kelsier's like, she looked perfect doing it. It's really not fair.
Why do you get it land and I just...
Yeah.
Like, she can't even die ungracefully.
It's because she's Vin.
But okay, yeah, that meeting between them, just, I love the fact Vin seems perfectly serene. She knows that her story in the physical realm, at least, is done, and
she's probably just tired too. She did a lot.
But she's basically like, okay, I'm here, I'm with Elend, and I can move to the next step. I have nothing tying me here.
I'm content. I'm fulfilled,
and it's sort of a sad moment, because you can see she's ready to move on. She has, fully accepted what's going on, and Kelsier still can't.
And even Sazed is like, I fixed your body, so you can go back.
Mm-hmm. And she's just like, no,
it's very much the other side of the coin of the Lord Ruler. Mm-hmm. The Lord Ruler he had his purpose, and the moment it got upset, he's just like, okay, I'm done. I have nothing left to do with this place. Whereas Vin's like, I've done what I needed to do.
Yeah. The Lord Ruler is basically, I've failed, I'm out. And Vin was, I've succeeded. I'm done. My job is done.
Yeah, because Kelsier, he's the constant can't leave well enough alone. Kelsier's never going to be satisfied, because that's just his personality. You wonder what it would take to get him to let go, because he's always thinking about the next project, the next thing to do, and he can't just be done. He's
it's almost like a hyperactive disorder type thing.
Yeah.
He's just always got to be going, and if he's sitting still, then he's fidgeting, and and it's just, but it's just, again, he cannot move on. He's just. It's sort of like the stories about how ghosts are basically people with unfinished business. That's Kelsier. He can't let go. He's not ready.
And he's a ghost, so.
But it's just like Kelsier is essentially the quintessential ghost. He's not ready to move on. He can't let himself move on. Even if he did, he could be with Mare, but he's still not ready to let go.
Mm-hmm.
After all, there's always another secret.
Yes.
Although, how many secrets could you find in the Beyond? There's probably a few things that he...
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is that he feels like it's the loss of potential that there's still these things over here. The beyond, it's constant procrastination. The beyond will always be there. So he never deals with it because it's always there. It's sort of like that paperwork that you have sitting on your desk at any point.
It's the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
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 Because it can be done at any time. It gets done at no time.
It's like when I was a kid, I was the youngest of 7 kids, and I hated going to bed because I knew they were doing something fun without me. And it's just, you know, there's always something. And so he's not quite ready to move on. And because of that, you know, he's not willing to let go of the little that he has, and he misses out on a lot. Now, that said, Kelsier's still got more awesome stuff to do. We know he's going to become some sort of Steel Inquisitor pirate with one spike through his eye, so...
I didn't think of it in pirate terms, but I like it.
Yar.
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 But, okay, so she leaves him with that beautiful lesson where she's just, you have a lot to learn about love, which echoes his final words to her in life, which was, you have a lot to learn about friendship, which was perfect because that was what Kelsier understood very well. Kelsier was a very good friend. But it's true.
Although he was willing to burn, like, he was a good friend in some ways, but in other ways he wasn't. He did recognize good friendship.
He also knew the enormity of his task and is willing to sacrifice things even if it hurts him. And to his credit, he was willing to sacrifice himself. It wasn't anything he wasn't willing to do himself.
To be fair, even though he hurt the people that he loved, any harm that he gave them, he felt tenfold. And so...
Yeah.
But I love his... because they leave, and it's just him and Says. And I love that Says... he sticks around long enough, and Sazed shows him Mare's flower bloom. Just long enough. And that's an amazing... Like, it's something perfect for Sazed.
Well, and I love that in the in Era 2, they're referred to as Marewell.
Yes.
As in... Yeah, and I'm just like, I love that. They're her flowers.
I just love that Sazed made sure that he saw it. That everything you did, Kelsier, it worked. You finally did it. Yeah. But then they have that nice little conversation where it's just the two of them on the field just sort of relaxing. And they just have that nice little conversation where it's just like, so, what do you think? Any chance we can get me a body back? Pause. No. I do not think so. And then, like, leaves. And just that final line of, got the powers of deity in Twain, and he's still a terrible liar. Just such a great line.
Now, one thing I want to see is I would love to see a conversation, like another conversation with Chris after she finds out that, this world that was dying that we left, somehow that guy actually made it happen and it's still around.
And Naj's knife was the key to it all?
Because he broke the
he wouldn't have had something to break it with because he needed something physical.
Yep. Yep.
But and then of course there's him going to Spook, and
I love that epilogue.
We got some things to do.
Yep, we're just gonna have to find me a new string.
No big deal, you know.
Poor Spook, as if he doesn't have enough on his plate now, being made the final emperor.
Yeah, and then he's like stressed out at the fact that he's like, I have my own little like log cabin, and nobody else has quite this much yet. Man, he doesn't.
He's gonna be fine. He has Ghost Kelsier to help him out. What could go wrong?
Nothing can go wrong at all.
I am excited for the potential of Mistborn Secret History 2, probably dealing with Spook and Kelsier's adventures. But
now Brandon has said, who knows if I'll ever write it, but I do have ideas for 2 and 3.
Oh, he'll write it. Because he better write it.
Don't threaten the author.
I'm not threatening him, but he better do it. I mean it in a cosmic sense.
Oh, man.
Like, the world would be better if he did it.
Of course.
Yeah.
But maybe only after he gets the line of Sanderbots fully in full production.
The Sanderbots really are slacking frankly.
I think they're still just prototypes at this moment. So he hasn't
right.
hit mass.
They're in
He hasn't
beta.
hit mass production yet. So
They're still in beta.
They're just typing fan fiction right now.
no, that was Wheel of Time. That. Guys, I still really want to get into what does this mean for the Cosmere, but
I'm frankly fine going a little long on this episode.
I'm okay going a little long, or I'd be okay doing another episode. What do y'all think?
There's another
I could go
episode
either
here
way.
if we want to.
Because I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Is Jordan stuttering?
Yep.
Okay, I think
Amy
we're good.
stuttered.
Okay, you stuttered as well.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, but anyway, I'm okay doing another episode. I didn't hear what y'all thought.
I'm all for it. I think there's definitely enough for another episode.
I think so too. So I think that our next episode, we're gonna basically start talking about some of the grander stuff, not part of the story that was in. There's answers that we were given. There are a bunch new questions that we were.
I mean, heck, you could
with.
probably do an entire episode on Hoyd's ore.
Or Spanky.
Yeah, well, Spanky has a whole untold story.
Oh, poor Spanky.
Like, I want the Spanky book right after I want the Stick book. But the Stick book first.
I am a stick.
I'm a stick.
What if his ore is the stick?
No.
I am a
that's too
stick.
big.
I
It was
did-
a small stick.
Okay, so for the record, there was someone who pointed out that the Hemalurgy chart is going to cause all sorts of fan fictions to make whoever you want a canon character by stealing
Yes, I saw
identity and
that.
everything. So it's like they killed a certain Radiant with a Duralumin shard, and it stabbed a certain plank, and thus we get the story of Stick or something. And all I know is we're now a madhouse, and I couldn't be more proud of the fan base.
I love us.
And maybe I'll actually, because I kept meaning to make an orb so I could use that for one of the pictures.
Ooh.
And I think I ordered the paint, so hopefully I can do it now. Because I'm like, I can't make it look right. So we'll see. Fingers crossed that it'll
All right.
actually have an orb.
Okay, so in 2 weeks, another episode on Secret History and the greater meaning of Secret History.
If there's anything that we're going to do 3 episodes for that isn't a Stormlight book, it deserves to be Secret History. Our tagline is "There's always another secret." If we can't do it for Secret History, I don't know what we can't do it, or we can do it for.
I'm just excited because we're going to English major the crap out of this short story next time.
Oh man.
All right, well, before we do that, of course, as always, we want to thank our patrons. Y'all are the ones who make it possible for us to make these episodes. So thank you, because y'all are just great. Of course, the show is going to continue to be free for everybody, but if you want to support us, help us out. Just even if it's just $1 or $2 per episode, go to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. By becoming a patron, you will get immediate access to our Discord channel. We've got a bunch of weirdos in there who like to chat with us, and we just love every one of them. We've got a budding community. We're hoping to build it. You can continue the discussion about the Cosmere and the show. You can interact with us directly, and you will, of course, get bonus content like the 6-7, which is a collection of 7 pieces of content that we have found and thought, hey, that was exciting, cool, weird, strange, bizarre, hilarious. And we want to share it with you. So, yeah, random stuff.
I think that was the perfect summary of adjectives for the 6-7.
I have an English degree, and I'm not afraid to use it.
See, now that sounds like a threat.
And, of course, if we make bonus content, bonus episodes, unboxings, playthroughs of games, etc., then you'll get early access to that as well. Beyond that, our patrons are also going to be automatically entered into our giveaways, which we are planning on starting up again soon. Just to clarify, that doesn't mean that only our patrons can enter the episodes, just that you will automatically be entered. Those are free for everybody. And then, of course, the great, you help us make the show. You help us improve the quality. As you've probably noticed, we sound probably a bit better than we have in the past. That's because we were able to upgrade our equipment, and a lot of that is thanks to you. As we move forward, we're hopefully going to be able to invest in even better equipment, improve things, hopefully not have quite as many technical difficulties as we had at the beginning of this episode. Not that that ever happens.
No,
Never.
it's perfect every single time.
Now, this time we'd like to thank specific patrons from time to time. This time we'd like to thank David H. Thank you so much for your generosity. It's because of you and all of our other patrons that we're able to keep making this crazy show. Now, I think we're going to have to skip emails this week just because we have no time.
Yeah, we'll have next time.
But next time we'll do it. And I think this email we've got will work pretty well next time too.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, if you do have questions or feedback for us, we would love to hear it. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know what your favorite moments were in the Cosmere. Let us know what your favorite moments in our show were. Tell us about the topics that you want us to talk about. Tell us about theories that you have. Tell us about how you came to find the Cosmere. Just tell us your stories. We love hearing from you, and if there's something that works for our discussion, we will hopefully be able to read it in a future episode. Just email us at cosmerestudies@gmail.com and just keep in touch. We like hearing from you. Now, of course, we've all got our personal projects that we're working on outside of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. As much as we love the show, we do have other things that we are working on as well. So, Amy, where can we find you outside of the podcast?
I'm on most social media. I'm on Facebook at Coincidence Cosplay and Props, on Twitter at Coincidence Cosp, because my name is too long, and Instagram at Coincidence_cosplay. I totally speak English, I promise. I also have an English degree. Yay! Anyway, so right now I'm making Hobbs heads. Bodies will follow.
Oh my gosh.
So VT Nymphadora.
I'm freezing, guys.
It's in the works.
I'm sorry. I
thought you knew, but anyway.
I didn't know you were actually doing it. I know you'd talked about the potential of doing it.
Yeah, I private messaged because I didn't want to. Anyway, but wow. I don't want to make too many because I don't want to do copyright infringement and whatever else. But yes, I'm in a plushie thing right now, and then once I'm done making the current plushies, then I'm actually going to make myself work on my Nazgul again because he's sad and needs to be finished, and he scares me, but I'm going to need to finish him. So
how do you read a Nazgul's face? Does that also come with the English degree?
They do head tilts and those scary sounds that I do so well.
Nailed it.
I learned something this weekend actually.
What?
You know what the noise of a Nazgul is? It's an owl screech. It's a particular owl's screech.
I can see that. Yeah.
It's not.
I wasn't going to try.
You can hear that.
I'm not going to try and
English
screech
degrees.
right now. But.
It's not edited. It's not modified. It's just straight up that owl screaming at you.
Yeah, I could see that now that I think about it.
Things that you learn when you go to Evermore Park.
Well,
the more you learn.
I'm now completely frozen.
All right, Jordan, how about you?
So normally this is where I hype my amiibo stuff, but I actually want to hype something that Bill got me for Christmas that I'm going to do something with. So before Christmas, I bought something for the purpose of weight loss, and that's an Oculus Rift for VR. I play Beat Saber to it, and it's actually yielding some results because Beat Saber is a very active game. But Bill decided to take advantage of this and got me something I didn't know existed. Bill got me a game. It's called The Way of Kings: Escape the Shattered Plains.
Ooh.
And the picture that's included with this has like a chasm fiend hovering over you. I haven't figured out yet how to stream VR content. And this isn't like I normally stream my amiibo stuff on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'm going to do a bonus stream, and there's a great Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies shaped hole in my Monday next week, since we do this every other week. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and stream this Monday at our normal streaming time, which is 7:30 Pacific,
10:30
Eastern time zone. I'm going to try and stream this on twitch.tv/splicestream. I don't know if this is a full game, if it's more of an experience that maybe only lasts like 15 minutes, which are things, but at the same time, the idea of a VR stepping into Roshar itself, I want to give it a shot. So, gang, if you all would like to see me potentially get stepped on by a chasm fiend or run through by a spear or something, this is your best chance.
Yeah, I've been eyeing that several times, and so as soon as I saw that Jordan was getting an Oculus Rift, I was like, well, that answers that question.
So how long has this thing existed? I never heard of this.
I thought I heard about it,
exactly.
but I don't.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, because we actually have one too, and I've done Beat Saber, which is really fun, and also soundboxing is fun too.
Soundboxing, I don't know that.
Soundboxing, it's pretty fun. It makes you work a little bit more because you have to step around a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, chat says
they're
maybe
both really fun.
Chat says maybe a year, and I think that sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah, it could
well,
maybe like 7 or 8 months. I think it was. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but we didn't look seriously into it. We probably should have, but we didn't.
So yeah, if you're interested,
it's my husband's
Twitch,
more than mine.
Yeah, twitch.tv/splicestream will be where I post it. And for those of you who can't watch it live, we'll definitely make it bonus content and put that up on the stream feed later.
Yeah.
Or and Patreon as well. So
yes, definitely.
Should be good. Hopefully it's good. If not, it's at least going to be interesting.
Yep.
Because where else are you going to be able to literally step into a world of literature? I don't know how, but VR has some potentialities I'm excited for. That's a word, right? You both are English majors. Back me up here.
Totally a word.
Yes. No, don't you cricket me.
I cricketed, and I will cricket again.
You take that back. You don't put that on me, Bobby Boucher.
I will not uncricket. Speaking of me and crickets, I guess, when I'm not here, I'm writing board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table. Actually, I haven't posted one for a little while, so there are kind of crickets over there. I'm working on another one in the meantime, though, so check that out at www.innkeeperstable.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Innkeeper's Table.
Bill, what game is next for you?
I think the one I'm working on right now is Terra Mystica. There might be something else that comes in the meantime, but that's sort of the one that I have on the current docket.
Okay.
So it came out a few years ago, but it's still a great game that deserves some attention. So. Now, if you have enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. It makes a huge difference for us in bringing in new listeners. And next to becoming a patron, it really is the best thing that you can do to help support us. And, of course, be sure to share the show with Brandon Sanderson fans you know. And, of course, everyone you know is a Brandon Sanderson fan. They just may not know it yet. So
It's true. That's actually true.
All right. So before we close out today, do y'all have any final thoughts about what we've talked about today? No?
There's a Hemalurgy chart, guys.
There is a Hemalurgy chart.
I have been waiting for this ever since I realized what that earring was, and it's finally here.
And for myself, I'm basically going to save my final thoughts for the next episode, because that's what I'm most interested into, is diving into what it all means. What does it mean? Double Mistborn all the way across the sky. Nobody?
Kind of true.
All
Did you
right.
want us to come in like with the double yas and clap and sing along here?
Can we not auto-tune the podcast? Okay.
I mean, you can auto-tune anything.
All right.
Let's not.
And hey, if you auto-tune the podcast, dear listener,
Tag us.
understand we will let people know. We will completely shill.
It's true. It's true. All right. Well, in addition to the live episodes of our show that stream on twitch.tv/innkeeperstable every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, our listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries our fine podcast listening by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. Now, for our next episode, we are going to be finishing out our stay on Scadrial, and again, as we've said, talking about all the exciting stuff that is going on in the Cosmere that we learn, and other questions that have been raised by Secret History. So go ahead and join us in 2 weeks on January 21st at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. In the meantime, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's
There's always
another
another
secret.
secret.